We're delighted to have four very different financiers here. Heading up the stage, just been overtaken, forward from Weise from Citigroup, followed by Badran from Bank of America, Don from Stonebriar. And are we missing Violet? From Global Jet Capital. Okay, so we're going to do this in a very serious, sensible way. We're going to go through the bank panel. Whose deal is it anyway? We've invested significantly in technology, thanks to James, so everyone will have a buzzer now. And we're going to see whose deal is it anyway. This is your buzzer to compete. So what we're going to do is, one of the things we thought would be interesting would be to look at, one of the things in technology, we thought would be interesting was to look at the different deal appetites that different financiers have for deals. So we've come up with a series of deals which they can now compete from. Alex, is your buzzer working?
I don't think I can reach that buzzer. I can reach this one.
That's right, you put that one. That's yours.
Oh, on your lap. Okay.
Yeah, you've each got one. Okay, deal coming up. You know, bonuses are important. This is your careers resting on this panel the next 30 minutes. It's important. Right, who wants this one? Japanese corporate, G650.
I know, did I win that? I don't think I pressed it hard enough.
Don, I think you pressed first.
I don't think so.
Why would you be attracted to this deal?
I mean, we're an asset-based lender, so we could be potentially interested in most deals that you would put up there. You know, the trick, of course, would being the client's also interested in what we're offering. In this particular case, you know, the airplane fits our target. The registration fits our target. You know, Chinese obligor would work for us. The part we'd have to do some convincing is around the flight department. You know, minimally we would need a professional flight department behind the scenes, but preferably, you know, more in front. And if the client had some, you know, their own employees behind the scenes, that would be the way we'd structure it. So
you're going to
we'll leg that one out.
You'll bid for this one. Alex is going to win it by being cheaper.
Exactly.
I know.
Well, I think I misread it because I saw Japanese corporate in big letters.
I think there's a mistake at the bottom.
Big letters that I could read, and
For
then I
me
saw
too.
Chinese ultra high net worth individual.
I think you can guess what the next one is.
I kind of backed off, but basically it reflects our window, which if it's a large corporate, particularly if there's a bank connection, it's internationally minded. We're used to large corporates who have their own flight departments, but it would be a large corporate with a real flight department. And then we would, you know, outbid Don on the pricing, so.
Make you look good.
Yeah, this is a deal that we can do as well. The aircraft size and model is something that we'll finance, and register aircraft is a no-brainer. The flight department, like what everyone's saying, it's the iffy thing. You know, we have to be assured that the staff are well-trained and they can manage the aircraft. Has to fulfill our criteria of a competent operator. The Japanese corporate and ultra-high net worth doesn't really affect us so much. Yeah, that one we can do. The only thing is, because the aircraft is managed by the client's own flight department, the corporate credit has to be really strong, because we don't have an independent third-party operator to deal with the aircraft should the client default.
It says Japan in there. It's a no-go for us. We don't have a banking license for private banking in Japan, full stop.
Okay. Next one. It's no expense spared. Ford, do you want that one?
Yeah, we convinced him to actually hire a third-party independent manager, though. Yeah, but otherwise, that's a straight Indonesia. Depending, we'd have to be careful about who in Indonesia. but it's something we'd look at, certainly.
But you would insist on a third-party operator?
Most of the time, yes, but if it is a well-known Indonesian and there are exceptions, so possibly, but we would try and push one of the third-party firms.
Anyone else on this one?
I have a deal exactly like that, but the client, very strong connection with the bank.
I mean, what I would say is, we would leg that one out also. By Global 5500, you're meeting a new airplane model, right? That generally doesn't preclude us. Guggenheim, we did maybe one of the first 5 G650s, and Stonebriar, I think we did the first or second Global 7500, so wouldn't bother us, that part.
Yeah. We will be able to do this as well, but the client has to pass KYC. Credit has to be really strong, especially if they want their own flight department, but same with everyone else. We'll kind of encourage them to choose a third-party operator.
Okay, next one.
I can be very slow. Yes. We actually have explored a PK-registered aircraft. We can do this. For us, the comfort in this structure is that the operator is international, but the client needs to be quite well known and be of a strong credit.
Who's kidding who? Really, sort of our interest in doing the transaction depends on how good of a client they are with the bank. How willing are we to really spend time looking at the PK registry rather, and if they do a lot of business with us, we're going to spend a lot more time looking at it.
The PK registration is, if you're an asset-based lender, you're set up to take asset risk in known jurisdictions. So local registration can be a challenge, can be a non-starter at times, but I think, we haven't been precluded from any deals we wanted to do in Indonesia because of that, but from what I know, if there were a local registration we could be comfortable with, I think it's that one. I know in the commercial aircraft side, it's more and more common. Dynamics are a little different than business aviation, but, that'd be my only comment around that.
I think that would probably fit with somebody else a bit better than with me.
Okay.
That would be
Next.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Really? No interest?
Says Chinese registry. Yep. Nope.
It's
be a
tough.
Chinese provider, I would think.
Okay. So we'll let Min Sheng have that one.
Are you kidding me?
That's going to be really tough.
It's the wheels up of China. This is your chance to get in at the ground.
Wait. Time out. There's no Kenny Dichter here, though.
It's the
If you know
Chinese Kenny Dichter. Okay. Ford, you got that one.
This is going to be just pure competition. We're all interested in it. Who's got the lowest spread? Who's got the best relationship with the client?
And probably a bit small for me, to be honest. I mean,
Well,
a
that's-
different aircraft, I have deals like that, but it's just an older, smaller aircraft.
Yeah,
Probably
$10
not-
million
probably not
deal. So what's your minimum? 20?
So probably
30?
Probably too small.
Okay.
What about age of aircraft? Does that concern anyone?
About
Are you happy to do a 10-year-old aircraft at the start of a lease?
the
Or
right aircraft, absolutely. Yeah.
That's still young.
Yeah, and we can do a higher leverage on this aircraft as well.
If it was a new 350, I'd be, reaching for the button. But
Okay.
Okay. I'll do it for the sake because I'm based in Hong Kong
And would
to
is it-
support our, Embraer friends. We would do it if it's a relationship reason. If this aircraft will develop a stronger relationship with the client, whereby the client will upgrade to a bigger aircraft.
Too small.
But yeah, it is a bit small for us in the Asia region, although we do a lot of the smaller aircraft in the US and the, Latin America region.
If it were 3 Phenom 100s, then it would make sense. Yeah.
I mean, we have quite a lot of Hong Kong corporate and high net worth transactions. They tend to be larger aircraft, and they tend to be N-registered. Not all, but I mean, we've done Hong Kong B before for a very large aircraft. It's really about scale. Nothing wrong with the Aruba registry, but we haven't got an aircraft on that register. And back to the point that Ford made, would we invest the time for potentially only one aircraft being on that register? I doubt it very much, but even if the aircraft was a larger one. So I think there's people better placed to serve that particular need.
Actually, it's interesting though. Are there many other financiers? I can't. For a smaller aircraft, it's definitely you guys are very ultra competitive for anything large. I wonder how easy it would be to get financing for that.
Well, international businesses tend to focus on international clients with larger needs, but there's lots. I'm sure there's local banks or local providers who could do something different. But you seem to be focused on, particularly on Hong Kong, China. But you've got Australia, you've got New Zealand, Thailand, Malaysia. India in the Asia Pacific region. So we have aircraft across all of those. So it kind of makes it look like we're not very interested in the deals, your deals, but we are interested in a lot of the deals that go on around the region. And we've written over $1.3 billion in the last 10 years. So I think we're pretty interested in the region. But there are bigger players who have larger client bases. So a Credit Suisse, for instance, would have a large client base in some of those regions who may have a different interest.
Well, there's a fundamental disconnect here. Phenom 100 in Hong Kong, you can't get anywhere with that plane. I mean, fundamentally, in Indonesia, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but not in Hong Kong.
And realistically speaking, if a client really wants to buy a Phenom 100, they won't go to any of us. They probably can do an unsecured loan at a reasonable pricing and easier documentation.
Okay. So. I think Ford, you won that by buzzing most. There's a few deals which we can't find financing for. So China is just completely closed to you now for the B register.
Well, there are fundamental problems there. I mean, they have great enabling legislation. As a matter of fact, the FAA helped them write the enabling legislation. If you actually read it, which I have, it's beautifully written. It's even better than the FAA. They did a great job writing it. The problem is the courts, who knows what they're going to do. Politics means more than the rule of law. Trying to get your airplane out of China, as we learned this morning, and we already knew, is virtually impossible. You've got to, essentially pay somebody off to get the airplane out of there if they're not friendly with you. And everybody sitting here is a U.S. lending institution. That's another problem right now, given the current political environment. So it's a discussion we had this on Monday when I was talking, both Melissa and I, who is in our Hong Kong office, we're talking to our head of risk of Asia. We're very focused on the increased political risk around U.S. lending institutions in the region, particularly into mainland China right now. So that's going to have to be a mainland lender, particularly, as you mentioned, Minqing. I think they're the most likely candidate at this point.
I mean, again, we have a number of Chinese high net worth individuals, but we structure those deals offshore. We don't go cross-border with dollar into China. We don't get involved in safe approvals or any of those kind of things. There are, again, better institutions who want to provide that kind of financing. So.
And the other thing is obviously trying to get the money out of China is an issue these days too. So yeah, you can underwrite them. Yeah, everything else makes sense, but really can you get the money out to pay you? That's a whole other issue that we haven't even discussed here. So just too many strikes against this one for anybody sitting up here at this time.
And Alex, if this was India?
If what was it?
If this deal was for an Indian ultra high net worth Indian registration?
I think we've done Indian registration. I don't know if Mark's in the room. I can't remember. It was a while back. We did a 7X a few years ago. I think it was Indian registration.
Yeah, you got
high net worth individuals. Is he nodding? I can't see.
Yeah, he put a thumb up.
Interesting you say that. 2 years ago I pulled India off our approved list because of the most recent bankruptcy there and the inability of the lenders and lessors to get their aircraft off the Indian registry and out of India, like we were discussing with China. I understand that's now changed. I don't want to be the first person that actually tests that.
Well, I'm smiling because the case I mentioned, actually the aircraft was impounded for a short period of time. So we had a bit of a panic Friday on that one. So we weren't going home to enjoy the weekend. But
Point well made.
But so again, cautious, and in places like that, there tend to be very strong bank connections.
Okay, we've got a question from the room. Would any of you offer limited recourse or asset-based financing?
No.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's our primary product. There's basic KYC that everybody has to do. Then our underwriting paradigm would be the asset, the registration, the manager, some subjective third-party background check, domicile, and then the last piece would be the credit. So that's exactly what we offer.
So Don, quick question. So if you're doing the non-recourse into some more challenging jurisdictions, obviously, it can make some sense, but what's the loan-to-value going to be, the maximum loan-to-value for that in those more difficult jurisdictions?
I mean, what's average, what's typical for us is, maybe around a 75% plus minus loan-to-value.
Yeah, we can't do, pure asset-based financing, but we can sometimes consider limited recourse. But having said that, not having any financial disclosure, how are you going to set your limited recourse if you don't even know anything about the client?
Okay, more questions. Why do all bankers make out they're doing customers a favour? It's a genuine comment.
Because we're bankers.
Who does that? I don't know. Show me an example of that.
Ford, China is a signatory of the Cape Town Convention.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Sorry, China is a signatory of the Cape Town Convention.
So? Doesn't matter. They got too many problems.
Whom among you would do VT registry if the credit is good and it's a...
Victor Tango?
Yeah, Victor Tango.
Yeah, I've done 2.
Not now, maybe. Like I said earlier, I don't want to be the first one testing that one right now since they've rejiggered their legislation.
Okay, who is interested in financing in Australia?
Me.
Sure.
We've all done deals there, I think.
Is that just because you guys like going there?
Yes.
Wait a minute. It's a great country, but it's just like California. So I travel all that distance.
They drive on the left-hand side of the road as well, which helps me. So.
Wait. There's only one reason to go. Every time you show up there, they love Americans. They think we're Brits. They want you to talk because they think they like the sound of your voice, which is very odd to me because the Brits look at us like, oh my God, shut up.
I win most of those deals because I can talk rugby to them. So it's,
That's your strategy. Would anyone finance helicopters?
We do. Again, it's got to be for an ultra high net worth client with whom we have a very strong relationship. From an asset perspective, they're a little more challenging. We've done 2 S-76D models recently, and they were very late in delivering. Typically, the types of people who can buy those kinds of helicopters, or like the more expensive Airbuses and et cetera, are the ones you want to do business with anyways. And again, we're a cash flow lender focused on the relationship and credit, and where the asset is less important than the underlying client.
I think Mark just did one in Australia as part of a fixed-wing transaction. But generally, the rotary deals on their own are too small, or they're oil and gas related, which is challenging as well.
Okay, any old school questions from the room? Final question, is it fair to say bankers are too picky?
For me, I would say I'm picky, yeah. I don't mind being picky.
If we don't want to end up in jail, we need to be picky. And we don't want to run afoul of the regulators as well. We don't make the rules.
But we do want to go drinking with David after, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. And in Australia, you mean, right? Okay.
anyway.
And a final question from the audience. How much of a difference does relationship make to rate?
Well, if you actually take a look, wait a minute, you should know the answer to this question yourself because it gets back to Basel III. So, unfortunately, I did a little research on that in the past and people hold me to it now. But really, if you take a look at Basel III, it says that the capital requirement for any loan can be much lower if you have a multi-product relationship. And in the context of a private banking relationship where one of those products is an investment product, the amount of capital held against the loan could be even less. Accordingly, absolutely, because if you've got less capital, you can lower the rate and still make more money. In theory, and the math works out, you can make more money at 100 over LIBOR with a client like that than you can at 300 over LIBOR with a client with whom you have no relationship, depending on the jurisdiction, some other factors, etc. So the answer is absolutely, and it has a bigger impact than one might think.
Don doesn't get out of bed for
And by the way, that's
More
a
of a
private
bank
bank.
question, I think. It's more of a bank question.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily apply to non-bank financiers.
Okay, final question. What do you expect from operators? That's a question from the audience.
A nice dinner. No, fundamentally, there's one thing: we want communication. We want to know early if there are issues. We want to know if the client's behind on payments. What we want is a relationship with the operator which is conducive in the event there's an issue or a problem.
Probably not as much as the client or the user wants from operators, which is being looked after, great service. But we like to deal with the larger, better known ones just because, they are more equipped. And, the three people who were up here earlier, we have aircraft and have had aircraft with all of those great operators. But cooperation, but it's a very rare thing for us. We're credit lenders more than asset lenders. So it's really about making sure that the operator provides what the client needs so that everybody's happy.
For an asset-based lender, multi-million-dollar investment, the operator's the custodian of the asset, right? So it's one of the most important pieces, what we're looking at.
Great. And on that uplifting, cheery message, thank you very much.